Thank you, Susan, and thank you for the great work and for the work of your team at Health Affairs on this edition. And also thanks to our team at NPC, many of whom are in the room, and hopefully you'll get a chance to meet during one of the breaks. But we've been involved on this issue for quite a while, and really pleased with the outcome. You mentioned, Susan, that it was last year's CER edition. Well, I hate to tell you, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. Time is flying. It was 2010. Oh, 2010. 2010 when we sponsored the last edition on CER and its role in the healthcare system. At the time, if you think back, at the time, PCORI had just been, the Board of Governors of PCORI had just been nominated, and the Affordable Care Act had only been in effect for weeks or months, if not weeks. And there were clearly more questions than answers around CER. So fast forward to today, 2 years later, there has been progress, certainly. Research is being funded out of PCORI. We're making progress on the methods front and determining what types of methods should be used in the construct of these studies. But still, many questions remain, clearly, which is why we're all here today. At our organization, at NPC, we focus a lot of our time and energy, our research that we do in-house, as well as the research that we fund with others in academia, looking at these critical questions around comparative effectiveness research most recently. For examples, and we'll get to the communication issue, but two others that I'll raise briefly. Two other issues that even 2 years ago we weren't really even thinking about. But for example, how do individual treatment effects and individual patient response, how will they be considered within CER studies? That's one of the key unanswered questions that we are closely tracking at NPC. It's a topic of a conference. Here's my little commercial for our conference in November on the topic that we're calling the myth of average, how individual patient differences matter. And basically, in a nutshell, if CER is conducted and it determines that on average, this population does better with this drug, everybody gets that drug. Well, what happens to the folks who are outside of the average? And so we're going to have a discussion around the importance of respecting and the individual patient and what solutions there might be around that particular issue. Another CER challenge or concern that we're looking at is the use of real-world evidence, and by that we mean basically the types of evidence that are developed that are not randomized controlled trials, the types of evidence that the FDA uses in their regulatory for drug approval. And most of the research that will be funded by PCORI and others will not be RCTs. It will be other types of research, observational studies, for example. And but at this moment in time, there aren't set standards around how those studies should be conducted, and there's differing views and opinions on how those types of observational studies are used in the marketplace. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done around the acceptance of this real-world evidence. So we have another set of projects that are focused on that issue, so more to come on that topic as well. And then finally, today's issue. In the current health environment, there are significant differences in how various stakeholders can communicate research data. We are looking at upwards of $500 million annually that PCORI could be putting out into the field for conduct of research. And that research will be done by various different stakeholder groups. Academia will do some, the government will do some, NIH, HRQ, industry, payers, all conducting research in their own particular way. And so that gets us here to today. With all of that new research being generated, what are the rules of the road when it comes to communicating about that research? The pharmaceutical, medical device, diagnostic industries are clearly highly regulated when it comes to communication and communication around evidence to providers, patients, and other external audiences, while other groups do not have the same limitations, restrictions on what they can say and to whom. It's this last piece that we wanted to really explore, shed some light on in this edition of Health Affairs. So it's this difference, this asymmetry in the ability to communicate by those who generate the evidence. And so what are some of the questions? Some of the questions that are probed in this edition. What happens When the findings are released, who can respond and how? Are there regulatory or policy solutions to this inequity? And is it possible to change the current situation in a way that encourages innovation and discovery? After all, the purpose of conducting research and communicating this information is to help doctors and patients make the appropriate decisions and arrive at better outcomes. And that's why it's critical that we all get it right.